I've had the original version of this game for quite a long time now, and I really, really like it. It's a great two-player game, and I'm so happy to see that there's a new version coming out with upgraded components, more scenarios, all kinds of great stuff. Let's check out Claustrophobia 1643. In Claustrophobia 1643, one player plays the Western Warriors, delving into a nightmarish underground, attempting to beat back an onslaught of infernal demons pouring through a hell portal, being controlled by his opponent. A round starts with the Western Warriors player, who will roll a number of action dice equal to the characters still alive. You will then assign each die to a character. The number assigned will be slotted into the character's tableau, which will dictate the stat line used for this turn. Each stat line provides a different spread of movement points, attack power, defense, and to trigger abilities and draw instinct cards. You can play instinct cards to either give an individual character a useful ability for the turn, or by flipping the card over, you can change the face of an assigned die to choose a more desirable stat line. As a character takes damage throughout the game, damage tokens will be slotted into your stat lines. If you're ever forced to slot a die into a damage stat line, the character will be exhausted, leaving him with no movement or attack, only defense. Now you'll be activating each of your characters. Characters can make one movement and one action per turn. You'll potentially be exploring new tiles, interacting with scenario-specific elements, or attacking creatures that stand in your path. When the heroes are exploring, the Infernal player will draw a tile and position it to his liking. Each tile has a maximum number of faction minis that can stand on it at a time, and will most often have special circumstances to deal with, like booby-trapped tunnels, the carnivorous tunnel, or the devouring pit. Now it's time for the Infernal player to take his turn. First, you'll roll 3 of the Dice of Destiny and assign them to the various powers you have at your disposal. Each power requires a different combination of dice face colors or values to activate. Some will activate immediately, while others will take a few turns to build up enough power. Through these powers, you'll be collecting threat points used to summon creatures, to increase the speed of those creatures, to draw event cards, and to tactically spawn on the board. Each monster on the board can then move and fight the heroes in an attempt to prevent them from achieving their goals. When either side has achieved their scenario goals, they are the victor, and now you'll want to swap sides and go again. So I'm going to attack this review from 2 different angles. First off, if you're new to Claustrophobia, what's the game like? Is it cool? What makes it different? And then the second half is going to be, if you're coming into this version of the game from the old version, what's different? And is it better or not? So starting off with, if you're new to it. Now, what is Claustrophobia? Essentially, it's a dungeon crawl game. But it's different than the ones you're accustomed to. I mean, you got like Massive Darkness, Gloomhaven, you got Descent, and all these different games. Very much kind of a role-playing game style of dungeon crawl. This one is different. If you've ever played the game Space Hulk, it's more akin to that. You are crawling a dungeon, obviously. But what makes it different is it's the 2-player concept, and it's very scenario-based, in that these scenarios are very much like puzzles you need to solve. And this is very fun, because really, and this may not be everybody's cup of tea, but I absolutely think it's fantastic. The scenarios are sometimes weighted to one side or the other, either the Infernal player or the human player. And it makes it difficult on one side. Like, it's not balanced. But that's cool, because what it makes you do is kind of like a cooperative game, makes you want to come back for more when you fail. You keep coming back. I need to figure out how to defeat this scenario. And you can do it, because the game gives you strategies that you can employ throughout the game. And there's multiple things you can do. It's not just a random dice fest. Because, okay, taking specifically the scenario, you go in there, you have an attack strategy. How am I going to go about utilizing my human figures in this dungeon? You can split up. You can use a lot of movement on your dice, so you can quickly, go through that deck of tiles and try to get to the end as fast as possible. Or you can stick together. You can be very defensive. You can go heavy attack. There's all different ways you can approach a dungeon, and sometimes those strategies don't work, and you have to go back and try a different one. So it's very fun to do that. And like I said at the end of the overview, you're going to want to swap and go again. That's the way I always play this game. You go into it, you do a scenario, and then you and the Infernal player swap, and you do the same scenario again with the other side. This game really facilitates you wanting to do that. And as a matter of fact, it facilitates you wanting to play scenarios over and over as you learn how, it plays out and how that demon, the specific demon of the game, is going to affect the game. I really enjoy that aspect to it. The dice rolling concept in this game is very cool. Like, as far as the human players, they roll the dice and they have to allocate their resources. In most dungeon crawl games, you're going to have your stats, and that's what your stats are going to be until you level up or you get some items. In this one, throughout the game, it fluctuates. It's almost like you're creating stances, like the way you're standing and holding yourself in the dungeon with your sword or your shield up, or you're just kind of throwing caution to the wind and running as fast as you can. So you're getting movement, or you're getting defense, or you're getting heavy attack. So it gives you those options to sort of approach the dungeon in a different way. Very cool concept. The Infernal player, on the other hand, has this really neat dashboard. It's just a fun game. We always liken it to Kingsburg. You're playing Kingsburg, but instead of building cities and getting the influence of the king, you're using monsters to try to kill people with it. Very neat concept, because you can sort of approach the dungeon in a different way as the demon player as well. It's a very asymmetric game. So this game does have some differences from your traditional dungeon crawl that I really think it has a prominent place on my shelf, and I will always keep the original, maybe not after this Kickstarter, because I will be honest with you, I like this game so much that I'm going to be a backer of this Kickstarter. I'm going to be going in and getting this game for sure and replacing my original version, because the new components, absolutely amazing. 20 scenarios in the book. The original base box only had 6 scenarios. You got 20 now. Absolutely great. If you want into claustrophobia, this is the way to do it. Now we're talking about claustrophobia. People coming in who played the original, is this one better? Well, I do have some mixed feelings about it. Overall, I really like all of the changes they've made, but there's a couple of things I dislike. One of the great things is the new concept of instinct cards. Originally, the game had advantage cards. You'd get a couple of advantage cards at the beginning of the game. They were one-shot use, gone. Now you have instinct cards where some of your stat lines will let you draw them, and you can play them on your characters. You get a one-time benefit for that turn. Those things are great. It makes you feel like you have more options as the human players now. More options for abilities. I really dig that concept. And the dual use of those cards is actually a great change to the mechanics of this game. You can turn them over and you can use those to change your die rolls. You have more options for, mitigating the randomness of the game. That's terrific, because in the original version, once you add like 4 and 5 damage on your character, it's very difficult to activate that guy again. Now that you can build a good hand of cards and you can play the cards to try to get those guys back in the action quicker, I really like that concept. What I don't dig is I think the demon board isn't as exciting as it used to be. I mean, there's at least half the number of options you used to have on the demon board. They got rid of a bunch of stuff. I used to like all that extra stuff. It gave me a lot of hard choices to make, and I don't feel like my choices are that difficult anymore. I know exactly what I'm going to do every time. Now, as far as the production goes, this one just annihilates the old one. It has beautiful artwork. The miniatures are terrific. I mean, there's 13 demons in the box. The original version had 1 demon miniature. This one has 13 demon miniatures with their stats and all that stuff. Love that. The new concept for the player boards, where they're hinged and you can slide in and out cards, this makes it infinitely expandable. All you have to do is get a new card, stick it in there. You got a new demon, you got a new group of heroes, you got new hellhounds or new monsters, not even hellhounds. So there's a thought where expansions could come down the pike and you'll be able to just swap them in and out with your base box components. I really like that concept. One of the bad things about it is this game is a gigantic table hog. I'm telling you, all of those player boards you got, they take up a lot of space. I got a 6x4 table, and this thing was eating the whole thing up. It can get very big, but big is always awesome. If you have the space for it, it's nothing to complain about. Everything about this production is terrific. The game is great. The little things that I have about the demon board and stuff notwithstanding, I am going to be a backer of this game because I really like it. I think the whole production is just right on target. I'm happy to see Claustrophobia coming back, getting some new gamers to discover this older game that I've always loved. So check it out, Claustrophobia 1643. Thanks so much, everybody. If you've enjoyed this video, please do us a giant favor by subscribing to the channel and clicking that wacky bell icon. If you're into board games, miniatures games, role-playing games, we have a bunch of audio podcasts you might enjoy. You can find those at thesecretcabal.com or on iTunes and Stitcher.